We are gathered here to talk about the life of the NATU stalwart, our hero. Indeed, it is very much difficult to talk about a person of Mr. Thompson's caliber. In these attributes, we'll look at a number of issues, the milestones and the happenings that will accurately and adequately reflect the life of a visionary, a dynamic, and an energetic man such as Mr. Thompson. Indeed, he contributed a lot in the life of NATU as an organization. Hence, we're taking this opportunity to reflect on a number of issues with regard to his journey as a leader, rising from a very early age where he had actually demonstrated and portrayed very skillful and powerful leadership. Mr. Skumbuzo Allen Thompson, president of the National Teachers Union, was born in Newcastle on the 7th of February 1975 to Mr. James and Mrs. Catherine Thompson. And then he began his schooling at Qedi's Zaba Lower Primary School. Then proceeded to Sipeni Higher Primary School. He then matriculated at Sabela Secondary School. The most interesting thing is that after he had finished the matric, he went back to the very same institution to teach. He had actually demonstrated a lot of high leadership skills. We see him in his journey registering or enrolling with the University of the North under Qwaqwa campus, where he graduated in 1999. He obtained a degree, especially an honors degree in education. Also attributed to his leadership, amazingly so, he also was engaged in leadership programs of the church, where he served as a youth president at the General Church of Zion as early as the age of 17. That is so amazing. After qualifying as a mathematics and physical sciences educator from Qwaqwa, he was then employed at Lifaletu Secondary School, where he also obtained many accolades for his best approach in education. When we talk about Mr. Thompson at NATU, it didn't really take him a very long time. Mr. Thompson rose as a leader, as a lion. You know, he belonged to Ubombo branch of the North Coast region, where in this branch, you know, he quickly distinguished himself as a skillful organizer, a formidable and shrewd negotiator. His abilities just twinkle like an evening star as he put a very outstanding performance in the bargaining chambers in representation of members. Mr. Thompson had really committed himself in making sure that he serves this organization with distinctions. After he had actually served at the level of the branch as the chairperson of Ubombo and also a member of the REC, the Regional Executive Committee of the North Coast region, Mr. Thompson was then elected as a vice president in 2006. After serving in this portfolio, he was also elected subsequently to be the deputy president of the National Teachers Union. Amazingly so, he served in various portfolios in this organization. At some point, he even served in more than one portfolio. After the conference of the 2011, where he was also elected as a deputy president, he then served as the general secretary of the organization and also as an executive director. In this combined portfolio, Mr. Thompson would always be visible. His presence in the organization would be felt, especially when it comes to the media issues.
As we are approaching the Christmas holidays, which means their families are not going to enjoy anything simply because their parents never received a single cent in a form of a salary adjustment. We have tried to elevate this matter to the Department of Education in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, making them aware that other provinces are paying at least a minimum of 6,000 rand, but they've decided to ignore us.
Mr. Thompson worked closely with the erstwhile NATU president, Mr. S.L. Ngobo. He had actually achieved a lot working together with the immediate past president in ensuring that NATU's presence is felt in every household. He contributed a lot in terms of ensuring that he went all out to ensure that people understood NATU's position on critical issues, both in times of peace and other educational issues. But most of all, he fought so much to ensure that the conditions of services for educators are improved. Not only conditions of services for educators, but all the employees in the education sector, because you understand that NATU has even other members apart from educators, members of support staff, even extended to office-based educators. All these are the members of NATU. Mr. Thompson has contributed a lot in ensuring that he lifts the flag of NATU very high. In 2018, prior to the National Leadership Elective Conference, NATU had actually experienced many challenges. Indeed, the organization was under attack. It was the year of many turbulence, simply because NATU has refused to watch the department doing corruption. We were very much concerned at the level of the organization with what was happening in the provincial education department. And the then deputy president, Mr. Thompson, by then, he was very much vocal in, and also making sure that he speaks about this corruption which has actually took place. You would remember, colleagues, members, and leaders, that there was the issue of the sanitary towels, which actually led to the attempt to assassinate the late president. This was a very painful thing to happen. It has led to many issues with many unanswered questions up to now.
We are talking about
NATU once alleged corrupt education officials in KwaZulu-Natal to be brought to book. They are demanding answers. The teacher union wants to know why vacant posts are not filled, why there was an oversupply of sanitary towels in some schools, and why some grade R teachers have not been paid.
You cannot force teachers to forfeit their salaries because you wanted to pay 120 million for sanitary towels. That is not acceptable. It's something that we need to do everything possible in our power to fight against.
The union has labelled the multi-million rand sanitary towel tender corrupt and a thorough investigation to be concluded.
NATU wants the investigating team to provide effective system of independence and objectivity to ensure that investigating activities are conducted thoroughly.
But Mr. Thompson has always been there for the organization.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. Well, it's not true that NATU was not necessarily happy about the initiative itself. We had no problem with the initiative. In fact, we are one of the people who supports that. The only difficulty that we had was when there was an overspending when it comes to the issue of the purchasing of sanitary towels, owing to the fact that there was 20 million that was budgeted for it. But at the end of the day, we ended up having more than 200 million that was spent on that. And our difficulty was that we were having schools that were without teachers. We were having positions, over 4,000 positions that were vacant, which means people were supposed to be employed so that they can be able to give support to schools. We're having grade R learners to grade 3 learner schools that were oversupplied also with sanitary towels. We had difficulty of sick rooms that ended up being converted into the storage rooms for the sanitary towels. So the issue was not about the distribution. The issue was not about making it available to the most vulnerable learners. But the issue was when the grade R educated learners were given such, and when the parents started to confront our members, the teachers in particular, to say to them, why do you want us to introduce sex education to a child that is as little as 5 years? So now that is why then we started to raise the issue, and the National Minister of Education decided to institute a forensic investigation, of which we are still worried about it because it has not taken off. And today, those are some of our issues that we also raised when we are having some discussion with the officials of the department, to say the department promised to institute an investigation just to find out what really happened, but we have never received a report in as far as that issue, tender processes. We even raised issues of quality, and because those sanitary towels that were made available were not even endorsed by the South African Bureau of Standards. So we wanted those cases to be investigated so that we can give assurance to parents that it was even safe for their own children to receive such.
We have seen him as a very dedicated and selfless leader who rose beyond the situations and the turbulence that we have at the level of the organization. Mr. Thompson became a target of those involved in the ongoing mischief. He was attacked by unknown persons, shot several times in a military style in a broad daylight on the 11th of May 2018 with an intention to silence him. He managed to outwit the attackers and survived to the tail. Despite all that, despite several bullets on behalf of NATU as an organization, which actually left him excruciating physical pain and nursing even deeper psychological scars, Mr. Thompson remained undeterred and resolute in the fight for righteousness. Indeed, he is such an amazing leader.
Deputy President Thompson survived an attack by armed men at Umhlanga. Well, the union says the attack was an assassination attempt.
It's believed the incident happened just before Thompson crossed the traffic light at the off-ramp from the N2 highway towards Umhlanga. It's claimed that he was shot at by armed men in another car. According to the union, after being injured on the shoulder, Thompson sped off to a nearest hospital but was pursued by his attackers.
He abandoned the vehicle and ran to the hospital. The suspect then took a laptop and an undisclosed amount of cash before fleeing the scene in their getaway vehicle. And charges of armed robbery as well as attempted murder were opened for investigation at Durban North.
Evidence of a bullet which hit the panel between the driver's window and the back passenger window can be seen in Thompson's car. The union believes the attack on Thompson was an orchestrated hit. It said the laptop contained documents of a forensic investigation into the Department of Education in the province.
We have to suspect some things. We're dealing with some serious problems of corruption. One may call them allegations, but yes, that's what we're dealing with.
The union says it will beef up security for all its executive members. Thompson is recuperating in hospital.
And this obviously we understand has come at a personal cost for you, having to walk around with bodyguards. Can you just quickly take us through that?
Well, the unfortunate thing, which we are still waiting again for the Minister of Police, Ubabu Begicele, to give us a report. We cannot link that necessarily it was directly linked to the issue of sanitary towels. It's what people are saying, and we've raised that even with the department to say this is what people are saying. But we are still waiting for the team of investigators that Minister Begicele promised the National Teachers Union that he was going to put in place. Up to now, nothing has been made in terms of a breakthrough, getting people who are responsible for me to be shot at that particular time, but we are still waiting for progress report from those that are investigating the matter.
After that, he continued to serve his members. He continued to fight for the rights of these members, the members of the National Teachers Union, and all the employees in the education sector. Mr. Thompson was elected to the NATU presidency on the 5th of September 2018. This was during the union's centenary celebration and the elective conference. He took over from Mr. Siposetu L. Ngobo, who retired as the long-serving NATU president after serving for about 18 years in the position. Mr. Thompson ascended to the presidency on the ticket of growing NATU membership, expanding the NATU footprints to all the provinces, taking over from the work which had already been done by the immediate past president. To further consolidate and strengthening NATU's business arm, strengthening NATU members' professionalism through the ongoing professional development, improving the conditions of services, especially the classroom-based and socio-economic, and also benefits of the members. The conference took a resolution to improve the members' benefits. Looking at Mr. Thompson's attributes, there are three major attributes that stands out. One of them is the passion, the professionalism, loyalty, and a rare fusion of leadership qualities. Mr. Thompson had a rare combination of leadership qualities. Indeed, he was a great leader. Great leaders set forth a vision and live up to it. They communicate their vision, goals with clarity, and inspire their teams to meet them. There is always an alignment between what they say and what they do. Of course, Mr. Thompson was such a person. The best leaders are forward-looking, they are competent, intelligent, and broad-minded. That's Mr. Thompson. Effective leaders model good human qualities for people who work for and with them. Typical such qualities include honesty, they include fairness, straightforwardness. When you think of Mr. Thompson, you can never think of other word. He was such an independent thinker. Leaders are dependable. Some of the qualities is cooperativeness, determination, imagination, ambition, courage. He was a man of strong courage. One of the qualities is caring, maturity, loyalty. I've already alluded on that one. Self-control and independence. These leaders, they care for and about the people who work for them. They delegate responsibilities to them and support them in what they do. They praise publicly, and when necessary, they criticize and reprimand in private. Indeed, as we are gathered here today, one understands and believes that it is very rare to find all these attributes in one person, but only Mr. S.A. Thompson had all of these qualities. Mr. Thompson had many achievements within a very short space of time. There were many, but we shall only look at the achievements that he had actually gained at the time when he was a member of the Central Executive Board. For many of his achievements, efforts, his purpose was to improve the lives and the livelihoods of NATU members. We have only chosen to talk about a few. One of the achievements is to advocate the rights or the workers' rights and improved employment conditions.
We have tried everything possible in our power to negotiate and talk sense to the department, and we have reached a stage of no return. If these educators are also not getting the money they deserve to get, if these educators are not getting salary adjustment for 2018-2019, on the first day of May, on the Workers' Day, we'll embark on a lawful strike action.
We are saying today, the main reason why we've decided to go to the police department, to the traffic department, to seek for the permission to come here is very simple. We are very tired of people who want to put themselves before the interest of the learners, before the interest of the teachers in this country. The Department of Education is seeking to use of dividing workers with the intention of ruling is not going to succeed. When the teachers of grade R are suffering, we are also suffering as teachers. When the teachers in the primary school are suffering, also those who are in the high school are also suffering. When the Department of Education decides to take more than 120 million and go and buy sanitary towels of the lowest standard and the lowest quality, we are not going to support that. The department is failing to recognize the importance of employing teachers in each and every school. We won't come to the legislature and keep quiet. When the department officials want to use the learner transport for their own campaigns, when they want to use the school nutrition for their own campaigns, we are not going to keep quiet and pretend as if we are blind.
NATU as an organization, of course, through the leadership of the immediate past president and also Mr. Thompson at the forefront, fought so much in terms of ensuring that the conditions of services for the grade R practitioners are improved. And indeed, a huge progress has been made in this matter up to so far. Mr. Thompson was a member of the GEPF board, the Government Employee Pension Fund. Working together with some of the members of the board, they work so hard in ensuring that the child pension benefits are improved. He contributed immensely towards the Public Service Coordinating Bargaining Council, the PSCBC Resolution 1 of 2017. Mr. Thompson was at the forefront in the notion of the government employee accessing a portion of their retirement. In 2015, there was a petition. The purpose of this petition was to try and reach out to the entire public and to get their signatures, but it was received by an overwhelming support.
It's a matter which seems to be stuck somewhere in the system. It's a matter which has to do with making an allowance for workers to have access to a percentage of their retirement funds in these times of difficulty. It's a matter that has been discussed at NEDLEC ad nauseum, and I am now determined more than ever before to ensure that the officials in the National Treasury and other relevant officials speed up this matter. A portion of their retirement fund workers should be able to access in these difficult times, maybe to finish off their bond repayments, maybe to sort out whatever debt positions they might be in.
School safety was one of the late president's priority. Whenever he's on the platform talking about critical education issues and challenges, he would always touch on the issue of the school safety.
Schools, in fact, are being targeted by the criminals. They want to come to schools and rob the teachers and do everything in their power just to make teachers vulnerable. And our worry is that something major needs to be done in terms of trying to improve the securities in schools. Mm-hmm. Yes, we know in that particular school everything has been done just to try to upgrade the security, but we have been saying we need also to add the metal detectors so that at least anyone that comes to the school environment, we are able to detect whether that person is armed or not. It's not only teachers that are at risk, but also the learners are at risk. So that is why we also encourage the police patrol or a visible police.
Mr. Thompson had a tremendous influence in terms of issues. Some of the issues are the issues of the Education Labor Relation Council, like, for instance, the issue of the equalization of pay progression. You would understand that those who are office-based and members of the support staff were entitled to 1.5% of pay progression, whilst those who were doing the integrated quality management system, the IQMS, were only receiving 1% in terms of pay progression. So there was a huge gap. His influence and his direction as a leader, because he was amongst those who were at the forefront in terms of fighting for the rights of the employees. Indeed, it has borne a good fruit. Like, for instance, now at the moment, all the public servants are entitled for the 1.5% pay progression.
Remember, in the public service, teachers are the less paid public servants. Their pay progression every year is less compared to all other public servants with 0.5%. And that thing has been there since 2008. And that resulted into teachers being disgruntled in terms of continuing with the annual national assessment.
One issue that we will talk about is the issue of subsidies for dependents. You know, the dependence of the government employees in attending tertiary education. Mr. Thompson's fight for teachers and public service workers, you know, generally to be classified as belonging to the missing middle, so that the dependents qualify for tertiary education subsidies. In one other, it's one of the issues that remains unfinished.
we are making a call to the Department of Education that all children of the public servants, especially those who are working in the Department of Education, they must be exempted from paying tuition fee. They must get some waiver in as far as the payment of the boarding fee or any other tertiary institution fees that are supposed to be paid.
The issue of the resolutions of the conference of 2018, of course, in line with one of the resolution of the 2018 National Conference, the Central Executive Board, led by the late President, Mr. Thompson, secured, what we would call a death benefit, which is for all the members of NATU and their immediate families. This was something that is so divine. And you look at the timing of this scheme, it was as if the board and the members of the conference, the councillors and the leaders, it seems as if they actually knew that at some point we would be confronted with COVID-19. Sadly, in March 2020, when our country's shores were visited by this COVID pandemic, not like any other organization in the country, we have actually suffered a great in terms of losing human life. However, by this time, the NATU death benefit was already up and running, and it actually assisted a considerable number of members and their families. They have received financial support during this difficult time, and they were then laid to rest, in a very dignified way.
A touching candle lighting ceremony to honor the memory of the teachers who died due to COVID-19. Many were also forced to teach remotely because of underlying conditions or age. The union says the pandemic and these challenges have exposed the problem of overcrowding in schools.
Teachers in South Africa deserve to have an official holiday. Those are the issues that we'll be raising with the National Minister today. We will be raising issues of safety in schools. We'll be raising issues of underemployment that is happening in the system of education, which resulted into the overcrowded classes. And COVID-19 is telling us that we can no longer afford to have overcrowded classes.
During the start of this pandemic, the COVID-19, as a sector, as a department, were exposed because one of the protocols required that there should be social distancing and there should be adherence to the non-pharmaceutical intervention and many things that we were supposed to do in ensuring that this issue of COVID-19, the spread is minimized, and in our schools, the teaching and learning can continue without any hindrances and without any problems. But it was always very difficult. Therefore, Mr. Thompson was very much vocal in terms of all these challenges that we have in the system. Challenges of infrastructure, challenges such as the appointment of educators, enough educators in terms of ensuring that there's a teacher in each and every classroom.
Very good afternoon to you, Dada. So from the level of engagement with your members, what is it that they're telling you about their state of readiness?
Well, thank you very much and good afternoon. I think it's very important to indicate that the Republic of South Africa must accept that we are in a very difficult period of COVID-19. As a result, the education system will never be the same, simply because of a limited number of days that we had to interact with learners, preparing them for examination. Now, coming back to your question, I think the teachers have done everything possible, except that we could only have wished for an extension of the teaching time, but unfortunately we know that also the Department of Higher Education and Training is also under pressure to receive the students, especially those that are doing matric. But teachers have done everything possible in their power. Today, they are still teaching. Schools are supposed to be closed in the Republic of South Africa, but we've seen teachers teaching almost each and every day. We've seen them making arrangements for morning classes, afternoon classes, and some are very excited that they are being put under pressure and they will have to produce results under these circumstances. They are very proud to serve the Republic of South Africa. However, they are worried that what will be the response of the learners. Hence, today, we also want to make an appeal as the National Teachers Union to all the parents that teaching and learning is not a responsibility only of teachers and learners, but we also need support of parents to give the learners enough time to prepare for examination and perhaps exempt them from doing some of the works that are supposed to be done at home.
Nobody would have thought that we would be confronted with COVID. None of us would have predicted the situation that we happen to find ourselves in. Therefore, it was necessary for us to say, for us to deal with the issue of COVID-19, there should be an improvement in terms of infrastructure. Each and every institution must have adequate infrastructure in terms of physical infrastructure, classrooms, enough classrooms, ablution facilities, water and sanitation. He spoke about these issues. He was very vocal about these issues because he was very concerned about the future of education system and the education of an African child. Unfortunately, while Mr. Thompson was still pushing ahead to fulfill his objectives and the mandate he was given at the conference, 2018 National Elective Conference, his life sadly curtailed by a heavy bout of novel coronavirus 2019, to which he succumbed during the night of the 3rd of January 2021 at the age of 45. May his soul rest in peace eternally.
The people that we respect, whom were voted in this province, to be able to deliver to the expectation of the people of this province of KwaZulu-Natal, decides to disrespect our presence here.
We've got teachers that have never been paid for the last 8 months. We've got those that have served the department until the end of the year, but they were terminated unlawfully and the department refused to employ their replacement. We've got some who have on the maternity leave since November, beginning of the year. Principals were not allowed to do a replacement of those. There is crisis.
Then the question is, who's responsible for the supervision of teachers? The office-based educators who are paid double the salary of teachers who are in the classroom. Somebody's not doing their work somewhere. Who's not doing their work? The person who's supposed to supervise the principals of schools.
Who's that?
Those are the circuit managers, the district managers. Those are the ones who are supposed to make sure that all educators are at school at time, prepared for the lesson and teaching. It's their responsibility. Our responsibility as a trade union is to make sure that if there is a violation of rights of workers, we represent them, is to encourage teachers to go and teach in the classroom.
Mr. Thompson always believed that the greatest leaders were the sincerest servants who served from their hearts. Indeed, not only did he submit himself to the service of others, but also in equal measure to service of God. He knew that serving fellow men and women was a service to God, the Almighty. As things are, we shall never know the heights to which he would have taken the union he had lived. He was the first NATU president to pass away while in office. Therefore, the 3rd of January 2021 would go down in the history and the annals of NATU as a very sad day indeed. For the union, the year 2021 will always be looked upon as an annus horribilis. Let us end this memorial with the words that he said to first meeting of the Central Executive Board held on the 17th of September 2018, following his election as NATU president at 2018 National Elective Conference. I quote, "We won't play politics with the long-term future of our children and our country. We will work to get it right. I want us to change because through its education system, this country faces huge challenges. They are not challenges you can put in individual boxes. They are complex. They are interconnected. To deal with them takes hard work, complex research, deep thinking, and I want us, the 2018 to 2022 Central Executive Board, to get it right. Our schools are reported to be completely unsafe. I want this Central Executive Board to pledge to the education stakeholders that NATU will do everything possible in her power and will use every trick in the book to ensure that our schools are safe again and that safety of teachers and learners and their dignity will be our priority. This means re-civilizing our society with school discipline, with strong families, with responsible single parenthood, and the culture of change. Ibambele phezulu.